Okay, let's break down what we are actually going to do today. Okay, so first we need to understand what we are building today. So it's very simple that we are trying to build a mini text editor engine. Okay, obviously no UI. So whatever, no UI, just a console based applications. Okay, so the functionality we are trying to insert is like basic functionality like insert, delete, moving the cursors, cursor movements, and you have like undo or redo operations, and we need to make sure that we have efficient operation. So efficient operation is nothing but we make sure that need to be done in better time complexity, right? Okay, so whenever we think about a text, okay, the first thing that comes to our mind usually, but your guess on linked list is a really great one, but I'll come to that again later when we do the dry runs. Okay, but whenever we hear the word text, the one thing that always come to our mind with a programming language or whatever things is two things. One is string, or you can just take it as character array. Correct me if I'm wrong, because text is nothing but a collection of characters, right? So string is a collection of characters, and character array is also a collection of characters. So basically whenever we think about text editor, so obviously we going to characteristic with string and character, but we have a limitation with using the strings. If you use strings, what happens is insertion and deletion becomes very hard, because let's say if you have a word, okay, if you are writing in a text editor that today we have DSA, okay, so consider this as a string that is written in a text editor. Now you want to edit this, right? If you want to delete this V, okay, so whenever you have a string, obviously the string is accessed via index, right? So these are the index that we need to do access over that. Okay, so whenever I want to remove this element, then I need to get this position of this WE, and after removing it I need to do the left shift all the elements, right? So all the elements left shift, so only then I'll make sure that this particular WE is gone. Okay, and also inserting an element whenever I wanted to try to insert a new element here. Okay, let's say I want to add a comma here, right? If I want to do that, then I obviously need to move all the element to right shift. I need to shift right all the element and add a comma here. Okay, so the insertion and deletion is made order of n, so which makes it very hard for the larger number of data in the text editor. Okay, so that's why we are not going with the string. Okay, so string or character array, straightforward. Actually we will use that, but we are not only going to use that. Okay, so that is the difference. Okay, so that's why we need to think in a different way. Instead of using string and character array directly, so we need to think in a different way, so where we can use this for the efficient operations. This is very important, because without efficient operation you cannot do something better, right? So that's where we wanted to learn DSA. If there is no DSA and if you don't want to carry, you are not about carrying the time complexities and all these things, then you are obviously going to write a rubbish code with the strings. But considering the optimization on time and space, then obviously you need to think in such a way to write the optimal code which runs in the computer very faster. Okay, and also you need to consider a lot of things when it comes to DSA and system design, but now we'll only consider the efficient operation for now. Okay, so let's say now it's clear, right? So when you use a string or character directly, so this is where we will have a bad performance. Okay, so what we can do here, so what can be done here. Okay, so Satya mentioned that we can use doubly linked list. Yeah, that in that you can instead of shifting the characters, you will have all the individual character as a node, and you can insert and delete in order of one time complexity, which will also work. But there are a lot of things that you need to handle, right? Because you need to handle the cursor movement, okay, and you need to handle the undo redo, and you need to handle the delete insert. So there are a lot of things that need to be handled. But doubly linked list you can use, but there are some hiccups in there as well. Okay, so that's where the regular algorithm, which is already predefined for this particular perspective, is gap buffer. So this is a DSA algorithm, okay, that is widely used in text editors. So even in the modern text editors, okay, gap buffer. Okay, so before getting started, let's see what is gap buffer. Okay, let me go to Wikipedia straightforward, because we'll just have the raw theory about it first. Okay, so when you read this, okay, so you don't want to see a lot of things, because there will be a lot of descriptions here, okay, and it's very clear in terms of Wikipedia as well, the concepts. Okay, just see the keywords actually. Okay, so gap buffer is a dynamic array, okay, which allows you efficient insertion and deletion operation with the nearer location. So that's what actually it's going to do. And you see that, right? The gap buffer are especially common in text editors. So that's what actually we are trying to do, trying to implement this gap buffer in our code, right? And the most challenging part in the text editor is moving the cursor. Let's say I'm just using this. Consider this as my one of my text thing. Okay, this is my cursor. Okay, if I keep the cursor here near the dot, if I type, you see the cursor is typing and everything is moving forward in the right. Okay, if I delete, everything is moving left side, and also based on the cursor, the word is getting determined. You see that, right? So cursor is the most important thing that we need to focus on in terms of text editor. Okay, so that's what gap buffer gives us the flexibility. Okay, let me explain you what is gap buffer, okay, which is very important. Okay, so say similar to what Satya mentioned, the linked list part, right? Okay, so similarly it is going to work as a linked list, but actually it's not going to take a lot of memory actually. So it's a dynamic array. So similar thing, which is similar to linked list, because we already came across some concept, which is what is the difference between array and linked list. So linked list, where we have the flexibility of having n number of nodes, okay, rather than having a fixed number of box in the array. Okay, so you can also achieve that using dynamic array, where you improve the size of the array based on the size. Let's say you have an array of size 10. Now if the size 10 is completed, now in runtime you can make the size of that particular array to 20, 30, 40. You can increase the size of the array based on the inputs that you give. That's what we call as dynamic array. Okay, so coming to the main concept, what actually the gap buffer do is, okay, we need to maintain a gap between the we need to maintain the gap at the cursor. So wherever you keep a cursor, let's say I keep a cursor here, or I keep a cursor here, okay, gap buffer, what we do is internally we keep a gap, a bigger gap like this. So whenever we start typing, you see here, this is a great example that we have in a Wikipedia itself, where you have this text, right? This is a way out. Okay, now you have the cursor at way out, after way out. Now you have this gap here. Okay, now whenever you start typing, the word started, the gap is getting shortened, the gap is getting reduced, right? So you see the gap is getting reduced. And also whenever you move the cursor before the started, okay, what you do again is you improve the gap again. You start filling the gap again. So what happens is, so that your gap is not getting completed. Let's say the gap is very less and you are trying to exceed the gap, and it's again going to override whatever you written here. So that's why we also maintain a structure where we need to increase the gap dynamically when the gap is getting reduced. So this is a core concept. So simple to add. What is gap buffer is, so in an array, maintain an array with a gap. So gap is nothing but an empty space. I'll explain you step by step. Okay, so this is a core data structure that we are going to use. So not only this, we are going to use second important data structure that will be following is stack. So why we use stack? For redo or undo. So whenever you do control Z, right, you get undo. Whenever you do control shift Z, you will be having this redo operation. Okay, so this two operation is very very crucial, because sometimes we make mistake and we want to edit that, or we want to undo whatever we do. Obviously we have this rescue and control Z, right? So consider that you are deleted entire the code. You just pressed the control A and you deleted all the code. Now we imagine that you don't have this undo operation. Can you able to bring that code back? It's very hard, right? It's very very dangerous and scary, and that's why we need this undo operation and redo operation, so to make sure that if something goes wrong, we can come back to the same place again. So for that we use stack data structure. I hope most of the people already know what is stack data structure, right? Yeah, so for now these two are most crucial one, and other than this we have some other things that we'll see that dynamically. Okay, so far I'll take a pause here. So far, any doubts? Any doubts?
No, bro.
Okay, I'll take it as now. Okay, got it. Okay, let's do a dry run first. Okay, let's understand the gap buffer and stack concept, how we are going to do it. Then we'll start implementing in DSA code. Okay, let's take an example and let's see what can be done. Okay, so everyone understood this gap buffer ideology, right? So the cursor, wherever we have the cursor, we consider that internally there is a gap between that words after that. Okay, so basically let me take the IntelliJ here. Okay, the editor in IntelliJ, right? Even that follows the same principle, whatever we are doing here. So the improvised version of what we actually done here. Okay, let me create a new project. So obviously this is also a text editor, right? So you see whatever we have here, I can select all this. The whatever I mentioned as cursor is nothing but uh, this white color blinking part. This is the cursor. See, if I keep the cursor here, I can type here. If I keep the cursor here, I can type here. I can type here. See, so this is what we call it as cursor. Okay. Okay, I'll just explain you the concept of gap. Okay, so the same example I can take it from here. So consider that we have a word like this. Okay, we are writing a text editor like this. So wherever you have this cursor, right? So let's say my cursor is in this dot, there will be a gap like this. If I have the cursor here, I have the gap here. Okay, so this is internal perspective, don't see it in the text editor. So whenever you see the UI, this is the UI of the text editor, it is abstracted, so you cannot see the gap actually. Okay, but internally when we are writing the code, we need to keep this gap to efficiently make sure to do the insertion, deletion, undo, redo operation more effectively. Okay, so here whenever I move a cursor here, imagine that you are having a gap something like here. Okay, so whenever I'm trying to add some word, what happens here is the gap will get reduced. Okay, so the same similar example that we have here, right? So the gap is bigger right now, but when you do this insertion, right, the way the word, whenever you type some word, the gap will get reduced like this. Let's say if you type 5 letters, there will be 5 letters gap will be reduced, something like that. Okay, if you have typed 3 letters, 3 letter gap will be reduced. Okay, started. Okay, similarly we'll have reduce this. So when this particular gap is getting completed like this, okay, what we should do systematically is increase the gap again. I mean, once it's go to the buffer end, what we need to do is filling the gap. The systems need to create a gap automatically, so that we need to write a code in such a way where if the gap is getting completed, then you need to increase the gap, you need to fill the gap again like this. You make sure that you make a bigger gap again, and you have this out. So when you do the insertion again, you do this here. Now let's assume that you typed this so far this much. Okay, now you want to edit somewhere here and you move the cursor to way here. What happens is this gap will come from here to here. So it's all about how you move the cursor. So cursor is all about, the cursor will going to retain the gap. So let's say I'm moving this cursor to between I and S. What happens? This gap will come between I and S. Okay, if I keep a cursor THI between this, what happens? The gap will come here. Okay, if I move, if I keep my cursor here, what happens? This gap will come here. So based on my cursor movement, I move the gap as well. So gap is actually needed where the cursor is, so that I can insert and remove at my convenience instead of shifting. Okay, the major problem that we have with the text editor or string or character array is shifting. So if you insert something, you need to shift all the things. So instead of that, you have the gap now. You don't want to shift it. You just shift, shift the gaps, which is an internal movement, which does not require more time or operational effort. Okay. Now let's go dry run one by one. Okay. So if you have any doubt, let me know. Okay. Let's assume that I have a array which is called as buffer. Okay. So buffer, it's an empty gap. So gap of around 10, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 12, 13. I mean, I have 12 gaps. Okay. Initial state will be like this. Okay, how I can do this is with I can have a gap start variable that will pointing to 0th index. I will have a gap end, which will be pointing to the number of gaps which I have, which is 12. Okay, now I'll have a two stack. One is undo stack, okay, and redo stack. So these are the prerequisite thing that I needed to make a text editor work, because consider this as a stack, right? So it's not an array or something, it's just a stack. Okay, so stack is nothing but it's also an array, but that follows the principle LIFO or FILO, which is last in first out or first in last out. Okay, so initially the end you haven't typed anything, so that you will have only the empty gaps. Okay, now when you insert, okay, let me just keep it as step 1. Okay, now step 2. Now you are inserting a character. Now you typing H. h. Okay, what happens now in the buffer? Okay, it will be like h and 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. I had before I had 12 underscores, now I have 11 underscores. Now I type h, and what you see in the gap start is it will be incremented to 1 and gap end will be similar to 12. So whenever you type something, you increase the gap start and you come to till whenever you reach the gap end, right? And in undo, okay, in undo I will insert the operation itself. I inserted, right, inserted h. Okay, I'll have this operation inside this stack, and in redo I don't have anything because I did not do the undo, because redo comes after the undo, right? So you don't want to consider about the redo, you keep the redo empty. Okay, now similarly in step 3 and 4 and all, let's say I'm just typing a word. Okay, now I'm typing, consider that I'm typing e, okay, e and l and again l and again o. Okay, consider that I'm typing one by one, h e l l o. Okay, now what happens in this case is, what happens to my buffer array? This is my array, right? It's an array, character array. So it becomes like h e l l o and underscore underscore 3. It's already filled with 5, my 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. Yeah, so total I have 12 underscores at the initial, so I need not to increase the 12, I'll keep it 12. And let's see what happens with the gap start. Now the gap start will be 5. Okay, the gap end is 12. So it's, and in undo what we will have is, it's a stack, we will have the insert operation, right? So insert h, insert e, insert l, insert l, insert o. So also guys, if you ever notice that there is a limitation in undo. So in some places you cannot undo everything, you have limitations. Let's say if you do 10 operations and if you do 15 operations, you cannot undo more than 15 operations. You could also, I mean, I'm not sure whether you observed it or not, but you go and observe it, because to optimize the code, to reduce the stack stack consumptions, most of the application remove it kind of least recently used, because it will remove or it will recreate the stack for the undo, so that to optimize the operation actually we do. Okay, so for now in nowadays, and system has more capability to handle these cases, so nowadays systems gives us the flexibility to handle it. But previously the system has the limitation with the undo operation, where you cannot add more elements. Let's say if it goes beyond 100, then it will be optimized kind of that. Okay, so redo is again empty because I'm not did any undo. Now when I see the text, right, it's allow in my editor, only this, not the gap. When I see the text here, right, it will be h, not the gap. So that's what we see in the UI as well. Okay, when you see the text here, right, I see empty text, which is nothing is written in the text editor. Okay, I hope you understood how actually it works. Okay, now the crucial part comes in. Now it's a game changer part, because insertion is very important, very easy when you see there is no cursor movement. Now in step 4, consider that you have a cursor movement. Okay, consider that you have a cursor movement. What is cursor movement? For example, from hello, right, basically whenever I type something, the cursor will be at the end, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the cursor in the second index here, so somewhere around he, after he. So let me put it like this. Okay, cursor to position 2. So I'm moving from this place to this place. Okay, Okay, now what happens here is, let's write the buffer and I'll explain you. Okay, in buffer, what is the thing we have? Hello and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes. Okay, so here you are considered 0th index is nothing but 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me write it here so that you will be able to picture it first. Have a buffer, which is, it's a character array, right? Buffer is a character array. Everything is capital. I'll keep it as it is. And rest is an underscore character, or you can also have an empty character, so that's your preference. Okay, I'll just keep an empty space character or empty character, or okay. So consider they have a 12, a length of 12, okay, for this complete array. Now I move the cursor to second index. I move the cursor to second index. That's what I'm trying to do here, right? I'm moving the cursor to position 2. So I'm moving the cursor to second index. Now I have this cursor here. So based on the concept, what we need to do, wherever the cursor is, we need to have the gaps after the cursor. Okay, we need to move all the characters. Okay, we need to not move the characters, we need to bring the cursor, we need to bring the gap to the index number 2. So what we do here is we bring this portion to here. So how do we bring that? I'll tell you how you can bring that very easily without doing the iteration, but for now you just have a clear understanding that I move the cursor here. Okay, not here actually, let's keep it as here. So which my cursor is here, so the gap should be formed after this, like this. Okay, so this you can implement in two ways, guys. One, you can bring all the gaps, here, okay, so which we are discussing previously, or you can also bring the gaps with the number of characters that you have here. Let's say after cursor you actually have 1, 2, 3 characters, so you can bring 3 empty things alone, empty gaps alone. So this also can be done. So it's about how we going to choose it and how we going to do it. So that's it. Okay, consider that I have this buffer here. Okay, now consider the cursor is here. What will be my gap start? What do you think my gap start is? When I move this cursor here, automatically 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So automatically what I will do, I will move this gap to here. Okay, now tell me what will be my gap start. So wherever the gap is going to start is index 2, 0, 1, 2. 2 only the place where the gap is getting started. So what will be my gap end? So what will be my gap end? Any idea?
12.
Okay, gap end that we considered as 12. So better, we don't want to disturb what we actually did. We can do it in two way, right? So we can move all the gap here. Now tell me what will be my gap end. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 is my gap end. So keep it as 8. I moved all my gaps as we discussed in here, right? Moving all the gaps. So that's what we are trying to do here. Moving all the gaps and keeping there and increasing the size, and similarly. So we moved all the gaps here. So we don't want to make it complicated the letters, but Now you see the start is at 2 second index and the end is at 8th index. Okay, if you have a pen and paper in your hand, please write it down and see how it works. It's very important. Okay, so in undo redo nothing has changed, it's going to stay same. Okay, and now when you see this text, right, in text also nothing is getting changed. Okay, because only we moved the cursor will be here. Consider the cursor is here. Okay, the cursor is here, nothing is changed. Okay, now on step 4, step 5, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a character. Let's say keep it as X. Okay, so because I have my cursor at HE and cursor here, and I type X, what happens? It becomes like X low, right? X low when I type here. So exactly the cursor is here. Whenever I type it, my expectation text should be X low, right? Oh, let me actually keep it the same way whatever we do, because we don't want to change this. Maybe we'll keep it everything as capital. So the text should be in capital. Okay, so this was the expected thing. Okay, so now see, this is expectation, but we'll come to that. Now let's see buffer. So previously, whenever when I try to insert a character X, what happens? In buffer I'll have HE X, the cursor will be in this place, but still I have how many gap I had previously? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 gaps I had. Now I'll have 6 because I already reduced 1 2 3 4 5 6 and LLO. So what will my gap start now? So where is the gap is getting started? 0 1 2 3, third index the gap is getting started, and 0 1 0 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So gap end is again 8. So if you observe it more carefully, based on the cursor, the gap start and gap end is getting modified. Can you see that? Based on the cursor, when you move the cursor, you can see the gap start and gap end will be modified according to that. So okay, so now when you do this undo operation, okay, in the undo, what happens is, again it will have a insert. So you inserted X, right? That will be stored. Okay, in redo again it's empty because no redo is being done yet. Again empty. Okay, so far we covered the insertion. Deletion is very simple, that you can do just remove the character and fill it with gap. Let's say if I want to delete, I can delete this and fill it with gap. So that's what the deletion is meaning. So it's very easy to implement and don't want to bother about more important with the delete portion. Just a backspace that gives you extra gap. Okay, so again let's assume that you do the delete, right? So again, whenever you do the delete, you do the you push that delete into undo again. Let's say in step 6, right? If you to delete a character, if you are deleting the same character which you already inserted, which is X, so when you do the delete, it's very obvious that you are going to fill this underscore. You are going to remove the X because the cursor is in X. Okay, we'll just have it an underscore extra, and I'll just copy this and paste it here, and LLO, because my cursor is here right now, which is after E, right? My gap start will be again from 2, and my gap end will be 8 again. So it's not going to change. But in undo, what is going to be changed is not going to change, but it's going to be inserted is delete. So I'm going to have this operation delete here. Okay, redo again is good. We don't have redo unless we use the undo. I hope like we already covered inserting the buffers. Okay, inserting the buffers, moving the cursor, inserting in the middle based on the cursor, and deleting the character based on the cursor or based on the character that we have. So it's all done. Now we need to focus what feature is. We need to focus on undo. Okay, so whenever you click undo, what actually happens? So let's say yeah, as per the step 6, what we have done, we deleted the x character, right? We deleted x, so the text should be like hello again. So previously we had x, now we deleted the x, so which I also added in this undo. So first what I'll do is I'll do the pop from the undo stack. So when I do the pop from the undo stack, what happens? Let's say when I do the pop from the undo stack, I'll have delete operation, delete x, right? So this is the top element because this was added at the last. Okay, so consider the stack is in a horizontal way where it is the top element is in the right corner. Okay, so whenever I do the pop, I get this delete as my thing. Okay, now what I need to do is, when you see the delete operation, it's obvious that we need to bring back the x again. Okay, bring back the x again is nothing but we should write a function, delete function, in such a way that we need to bring back whatever that we have in the gap start. Let's say gap start, right? Initially gap start was 2. Now we know that in the previous state the gap start was 3, and the letter that we already deleted is x. So what we will do is in gap start 2 we will insert this x. So in buffer what happens, the buffer was like this now. Okay, the gap start was 3 initially. Okay, but when we do this the undo operation, right, what happens is now the gap start is 2 initially. Now we bring back the x again in the gap start of 2. In the gap start 2, we bring back the x again. Okay, now we make the gap status 3. Okay, yeah, there is no change in gap, and because we are not moving any cursor here. But now since we already popped it, the delete operation in the undo should be gone. So the delete operation in undo should be gone, and this and we will have we will just add the same operation in redo, because now you click Ctrl Shift Z. Now you need to redo the operation what you done previously, which means you need to delete the x. So now you know have the information in which position the x will be there, and you need to remove and fill it with gap. Okay, so that is the scenario, but I'll show you how to write this delete and insert functions, because these are the most important functions that you need to write, so that you can also perform the undo redo operation more effectively. I hope you guys understood the concept.